back. Another beautiful week. Sit back, relax, and let's see who shows up. Is it Tuesday? I don't even know what day of the week it is. They're all running into the same because I'm sleeping in 2-hour chunks usually. Just Patty. Patty. Hello. Jack Fit, hello. Ooh, Andrea, hey. Hey, Kim. What's going on, guys? It is Taco Tuesday throughout the country. I know it is a national holiday every Tuesday. I believe my wife and I are having chicken shawarma tonight, though. But it's going like in a flatbread, so that's a type of taco, maybe. Yeah. What's up, Nesting with Grace? Grace and Love. Hello. Gonna give people a couple minutes. I know I was a minute or two late. We're gonna let people kind of join in. We're talking about something that it's gonna seem very similar to the episode I did months ago now, which sounds crazy, about sciatica. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about a flexion intolerant back, and we'll go over kind of what that means here in a couple minutes and why that might not be a good terminology to use for most people. Like I said, I'm just going to give people another minute or two to join in. I know I was a little bit late to the party. I guess these things happen now when you have a newborn. So, yeah, like I said, today is all about the flexion intolerant back. And if you haven't already, I asked you to bring a broomstick, which once again, kind of like last week, isn't an essential tool for today, but it will help a lot in the cueing and the movements that we do in a little bit. And also a medium weight. I've got a kettlebell back there, but even rubber bands will do, some dumbbells, something that we're just going to be patterning our deadlift with, because just because our backs are, might be intolerant at the moment to flexion, doesn't mean that we shouldn't and can't load our backs up, especially with like deadlifts and squats and variations of squats and things like that. So we're going to talk about that stuff a little bit at the end as well. I'll probably be out of breath and sweaty. Yeah, so. All right, well, it's 5 after, so I'm going to start rambling on a little bit. So today we're talking about managing a flexion intolerant back. For those of you who don't know, a flexion intolerant back is a back that doesn't like to round or to flex. Now, I do believe that plenty of people out there have this, and it might be because of sciatica, it might be because of a disc herniation, it might be due to some other trigger point or muscle in the low back that is causing that flexion to be uncomfortable. But I do think that once you peg somebody as like, oh, you have a flexion intolerant back, they tend to think, oh, something is wrong with me. No, it's not wrong. It's totally normal, totally natural for us to go through phases of our life where going forward or even going backward is difficult or uncomfortable. So you just don't tolerate flexion at the moment. And so it is important to remind you guys or remind people or our patients or clients, whoever it is, that yes, right now your back might not like flexion, but it is a normal physiological movement that we have to reestablish eventually. But the first things first, as far as rehab goes, is we need to get your symptoms under control. And so it is important that we reinforce some extension or some neutrality to the spine, whatever it likes or prefers. But with the idea that we are eventually going to progress it into being able to flex again. There's this misconception that when you deadlift or when you squat, you have to have this straight spine. But what they have found with lots and lots of research, because people say this a lot, what they have found is that even with the most straight spine during your squat, you'll actually still have about 40 degrees of flexion in your spine. And so we have all these people who are looking for this idea of a perfect extended spine when they're squatting, and they're just not getting it. It might look like it, but once you start hooking up some monitors and sensors to the spine, you'll actually see that we are creating flexion. And so it is normal, it's natural, we have to do it. And yeah, so we're going to go over methods a little bit later how we can continue to work on our leg and core strength with managing the spine when it doesn't like, or it's going through those moments of not liking flexion. Okay, but there's nothing wrong, you're not broken, and eventually things will calm down and you will feel good again. So I'm going to pop back here. We're going to start off a little bit kind of the normal progression, a lot of stretching, then some mobility stuff, and then popping into more of the active stuff with some stick hinges, some deadlifting, some step back lunges, and we'll call them some box squats. I got a chair that I'm going to put my butt down to. You don't need a chair for it, but it will help as a little cue. So, all right, so I'm going to pop back here. The first thing that we are starting off with is going to be a pigeon pose. Get this out of the way. So a pigeon pose is just going to be stretching out the back of our hip. And what happens is if we're doing some squatting and we're going down into our squat and we have tight posterior structures in the back of our hip, they can cause us to go down, and then if we can't get any more extension or any more length out of the tissues in the back of our hips, what's going to happen is we're going to start going to that rounded spine. And so if you already don't like flexion of your spine, what's going to happen is they're going to put more of that flexion into your spine, and you're not going to want to do things like squatting or deadlifting or hinging, things that are important actually to feel good again, to prove to your body, to yourself, that you can and should still be moving. So a pigeon pose, comes out of the yoga world, but it's great for stretching out the back of the hip. And typically when you're doing this in yoga, they're going to say that you're going to come down here because you'll get a better stretch. Now, that's for the yoga world, but for my world, my rehab world, and the flexion intolerant spine, the spine that doesn't like flexion, you're going to be upright with your chest. I've always taught it like this for my patients. I feel like it puts a little less stress and strain on the lower spine and still allows you to get all of that stretch in your back hip. And so we're going to be going here for 60 seconds on each side. It shouldn't be anything crazy. You shouldn't be sitting here dying and saying, oh my God, I can't wait to do 40 minutes. Just looking to get a nice little stretch. Ease into the beginning of this session today, of this clinic, of trying to help you that might be going through an uncomfortable time, but it is going to pass. It's going to feel better, and maybe some of this stuff can help. And if any of this is uncomfortable, just set it aside and wait for the next thing. Really for more than 1 minute at a time. So you'll stuff, and you can kind of pick and choose and see what makes you feel best. We're going to just switch it up. And if this for some reason is uncomfortable on your knee, you can flip over onto your back and you can just pull your knee across your chest. It's just a pretty standard piriformis stretch. So I'm going to show you guys that in a second. So if you're comfortable here, stay here. But if that's uncomfortable on your knee, you're just going to flip over onto your back. You're going to take your knee up and pull it up and across your body. And it is okay if you get a little bit of rotation in your spine, as long as it feels okay there. But you should feel a stretch, once again, in the back of your hip, just like with the child's pose. And let's see here. We got about 15 seconds. I'll just stay here, but everybody else just stay, or pigeon pose, excuse me. I misspoke before. So we're just, it doesn't matter how you skin the cat. We're just trying to stretch out the back structures of the hip that might be limiting in your hip hinge pattern, which we talked about last week, or in your squatting pattern, which we've talked about in the past as well. And the common thing that people think of when they say, oh, I don't tolerate flexion well, and my spine is sciatica. But like I said at the start here, there's plenty of other things besides your sciatica that can cause pain in your back with flexion. The pain doesn't have to go down your leg. It doesn't have to be peripheral symptoms. It could be the fact that you bend over in your low back hurts. Now, that's not the common thing that most people are talking about with flexion intolerant back, but it is part of it. We're going to build upon stretching out the posterior structure of your hip, because they are pretty important for everything that we're going to do later. You're going to be in your half kneeling position. So we got one knee down. I do want you to tuck your toes underneath so you can work on that big toe mobility that helps propel us forward, helps us jump, helps us land. It's really good to have mobility. My microphone's a little choppy. All right, well, I'll do my best. Sorry if the microphone sucks, but so what we're going to do is we're going to extend your leg out, keeping your spine straight, pulling your toes up, and you're going to push your hip back. And when you do this, it's kind of the same principle as with your pigeon pose. Chest is up, straight spine. Okay, so we don't want to be here. This isn't going to feel very good, obviously, because your back doesn't like it right now. We're just feeling a stretch right here for 1 minute. We're just hanging out. And this is going to help maybe get some extensibility and some mobility in our hamstrings and a little bit more in our glute and even in our calf for when we lift in a little bit. And then we're going to do one more stretch next, and then we're really going to get going. We're going to be doing a hip flexor stretch next, which typically I like using your hip flexors and then stretching them up, but there's still going to be benefit to just jumping it right in to your hip flexor stretch to work on opening up the anterior structures of your hip to allow you to get better extension so you're not always flexed and pulled rounded over. So we're going to switch sides. All right. So here we are. Same thing. Legs extended in front, tall through your chest, and push your butt back. And so if the goal were just to be touching my toes, I can touch my toes and not get a hamstring stretch. But my spine is really rounded, and that might be pretty uncomfortable right now. So if I keep my chest up and I keep that nice lordosis in my spine, I'm not overarching back. Then I push my butt back a little bit. Then I get a big stretch in my hamstrings and even in my adductors on my left leg. So we're just hanging out. A couple more seconds here. We got about 20 seconds. Whew. So it doesn't have to be aggressive, like I said. Stretching is always something you should want to do again. Maybe yours doesn't look like mine. Maybe you have to have a little bit more bend in your knee and you still get a stretch. That's fine. Remember, stretching and these exercises, they're all things that should help you feel better, and you do them to your capabilities. Your stretch doesn't have to look like mine. I should never impose, too many form rules on you. I'll give you the basic principles, and then you work within those guidelines to make sure that you're getting a stretch and you're doing it safely. Okay. So we'll just stay here down on this knee. I'm going to have you bend forward. You're going to tuck your pelvis. You're going to bring your chest up and then push your hips and torso forward. If you just push your hip forward, you're going to cause a lot of compression in your spine. I know that your spine might not mind it now, but over reps and reps and reps, it will start to mind the increase in pressure there. So you're just tall through your torso, tuck your pelvis, tall through your torso, and then push forward. And we're here probably another 45 seconds or so. And so I'm lacking the ability to get into extension because my hip flexors are tight. I'm going to spend most of my time in that flexed position. Now, if I'm experiencing back pain because of this prolonged flexion, the longer I sit, the tighter my hip flexors are, the more that's going to feed into that discomfort and that dysfunction. So it's important for those reasons, and especially because we sit so much throughout our day. I was reading some research a couple months ago that said that we sit, the average American reports that they sit about 12 hours every day. And we know that people in general are notorious for underreporting things like their alcohol. They overreport their sleep. They underreport the amount of food they eat, that kind of thing. So we know that those 12 hours are probably more like 15 to 16. Okay, we're going to switch. Once again, big toes in back. Tuck your pelvis. Come up nice and tall. Squeezing that back butt cheek. And I'm tall through my chest and I'm pushing forward. And if this is easy, you don't feel that stretch in your hip, just go ahead and reach back. Now I'm reaching back with my opposite arm, but you can reach back with the same side. Play around with it. That one's up to you. And you're basically, with this, trying to get your heel up towards your butt. But the same principles apply, right? We don't want to be extended back. Just chest tall, but not arched back. Now from here, we're going to be kind of moving up the chain. We're going to be skipping over the low back for a second. We're going to be mobilizing our thoracic spine. If we have stiffness in our thoracic spine, we might start to search for mobility elsewhere in our body, and part of that might be our lumbar spine. So we need to make sure that we're addressing any mobility restrictions that might be there typically we'd love this beautiful one-on-one assessment, but that's just not what we're capable of here with this live. So, I'm kind of assuming that, if you're here and you're working on this stuff, that maybe you've been sitting a lot and maybe we could use a little bit of thoracic mobility. I know I can. And I'm getting up every half hour. I'm changing my position every 20, 30 minutes. And I still, now with my telemedicine stuff that I'm doing, am sitting so much that I know that I need to do a little extra work on my thoracic spine. All right, so we're going to be doing some open books. I'm just going to check this microphone here. All right. So we're doing some open books, which require you to lay just down on your side. You're going to flex your hips so your knees come up towards your chest. You're going to use your top hand to hold your knees down, because if you're really tight in your thoracic spine, you're going to open up. You might hit that wall of, literally and figuratively, that wall of mobility, and you might say, oh, okay, like I can go farther, except you've just lifted your legs up. And so instead, we like to hold them down, and we'll get a better assessment as you go back as to what your mobility and flexibility abilities really are. And we're going to make 10 reps. You basically want to make sure that your elbow and your hand stay above shoulder level. Okay, so if this is my shoulder level, I want my elbow and my hand to be up here. So I'm going to get a better stretch in my pec as I do this. I think I got 4 left. You want to make sure you're breathing out as you go. Same principles as I always have as you stretch. You want to use your breath to help your muscles relax a little bit more. You never want to be really tight and stiff when you're stretching and mobilizing, because you're probably just going to tense up and feed more tension into the system than actually allowing your central nervous system to relax. There we go. And actually gain some mobility. So if you're really, really tense, if you can't make a happy face, or if you can't relax your face when you're working on your flexibility or mobility, chances are you're not doing a very good job of working on your flexibility or mobility. Now, things change a little bit when you're doing some myofascial release work. If you're using a foam roller and a ball, then there's a little bit of wiggle room for some discomfort. But when you're stretching and moving your body actively, chances are you want to be a little more relaxed. And we're going to start feeding a bunch of extension into our spines here in a minute. We're going to undo all that sitting that we've been doing all day. I had 7 straight people on the computer today, so I sat for a bunch of hours. And this is, it's like my body knew that I would be doing this live today. You can sit for all those hours. I did get up about 14 to 16 times and move around. Some pec stretching. I did some quad and hip flexor stretching while I was working. No excuse. Just because I'm tied to a desk or tied to a countertop that I can't get some movement in throughout my day. All right. So typically, when we have, we're working with someone whose spine is sensitive to flexion at the time, I like to feed it a bunch of extension. It's typically what feels better. Now, that is not always the case, but once again, we need an individual assessment to determine that. If you want an individual assessment, please hit me up. My direct messages, I'll be happy to work with you. But for now, because most people feel better, or their symptoms might centralize or get closer to their spine, which is seen as improvement, because they might centralize with extension, we're going to do quite a bit of extension here. We're going to kind of piece together 3 exercises, and these are being brought back from the sciatic episode that I did months ago. They're really, really simple. They're not necessarily easy. They feed tons of extension into your spine. They're really individualized, so it's you do as much extension as you can tolerate, or as much as you feel is benefiting you at the time. And then we're going to progress through these 3 things. So the first one is a cobra. The second one is a cobra to quadruped, so on your hands and knees. And then the third one is quadruped to half kneeling. All of which we're doing with an emphasis on our lumbar extension, or extension of your low back. So with your cobra, you're going with your hands underneath your shoulders. You're down on the floor. We're going to do 8 of each of these. As far as your toes go, it doesn't matter to me too much. I like getting my toes tucked under. Then we're going to push up. maybe you don't even come close to this, and that's okay. Once again, your spine is your spine. You'll make some improvements along. As long as if you're feeling symptoms, you're doing something, you're changing the input, changing the postures, positions, and environments that you are earlier about that. That we put on it, things like exercise and food, sleep, being, you know, the things we interact with on a daily basis, our work environments, our cars, couches, homes, that kind of thing. And I think I got 2 left. And I'm going to stay up in extension. So you kind of get up. Now from here, I'm in an extended position in my low back. Really, really good. If you're pushing past your limits, maybe back down a little bit, maybe bend your elbows a little more. But I'm going to unlock my hips and come in to quadruped. So hands and knees. My hands are slightly in front of me, that's fine. But you'll see that I still have a big arch in my lumbar spine, my low back. And we want that in the instance of someone who feels better with extension in their low back, right? We want to maintain that. We don't want to be going through this flexion moment with someone who doesn't like flexing their spine. It's probably not going to feel good, might flare them up a little bit. So basically, you're dropping your hips down, and then you're flexing your hips while maintaining that lumbar lordosis or extension. And so we're down and up. And this is a cobra to quadruped. Now I've already done 4, so I'm going to do 4 more. And if this is uncomfortable for you, or doesn't feel very good on your back, your wrists, your hands, you can stay in your cobra. You can do more cobras. You can do, you know, anything else. You can go back up into your hip flexor stretch. And I got 1 more. All the time, I'm keeping that extension in my low back, and I'm getting all the movement in my lumbar spine. That was my 8. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to move my hands back. I'm going into true quadruped with my wrists underneath my shoulders. From here, I'm going to reach my foot forward. I'll go on this side so you can see. I'm maintaining my lordosis, reaching my foot. Now I'm up. So I'm going to stay here in this half kneeling position. I'm going to basically try to put my hands down on the floor. So I'm going from really a modified quadruped position, half kneeling position, to up. Now if you can't get down without, I want you to go that deep. So all I would want you to do is maybe put your hands across your chest, maybe behind your back so you can feel what you're doing, and just go here, so here, and I'm coming up. What we're doing is squatting and hip hinging. So we have this front leg, which is more in a squat position, and the back leg, which is going a hip hinge position. Because we're going to be doing some stick hinges, some deadlifting, and some squat patterning in a little bit. This is like a precursor. But if you can get down and touch the ground and then come up, awesome. More power to you. That's what I want you to do. You might feel that big stretch in the performance, but we stretched all that stuff out at the beginning. So maybe you're able to get a little bit more than you would have if we had just jumped right into this. My chest is up. I'm getting some thoracic extension, some lumbar extension. And then I'm going to switch. I don't know which hip is feeling a little tighter today, but we'll see. Can I get down here? I can't quite reach the ground. Make sure that I'm using my glute to get into extension, and I'm not overly extending my lumbar. Again, I'm not putting that upright compressive force. Load your spine, lift, you're using compression. Flexion and extension of my lumbar spine under lock of the foot. Got 3 more to go. This is a half kneel. Modified modified quadruped half kneel, excuse me. And now we're gonna go back to our hands and knees. We're doing a modified bird dog that uses or moves while we're in an extended or an overemphasized extended position of our lumbar spine. So we get down here, we do our normal bird dogs, we're in like a neutral spine, we'll say. But if we are having some pain with flexion, I want you to actually emphasize being extended. And now as I kick back, I'm still in an extended position. I'm doing my bird dogs. We're going to do 8 on each side. Just take your time with it, reaching your opposite leg and arm forward. Trying to prevent any rotation from happening in my hips and just focusing on really extending my lumbar spine. Just a brief pause, nothing crazy. Okay, awesome. So we're getting a little bit of trunk stability in there, a little bit of oblique and hip control with that bird dog, but while maintaining that extended spine position. We're loading up the spine, we're still using it. The last thing we want to do is be like, man, I should just go on a bed rest because my spine hurts. You're going to be way worse off because of that. You basically need to find the lowest common denominator of movement and work within that range, because you will recover faster, you will feel better sooner, and you're going to reduce the amount of time that you're experiencing disability. Last week, we're going for stick hinges. We're going to do 8 of them. Now, for those of you who missed last week's troubleshooting the deadlift, this stick is going to basically just be so we're going to be standing. If you're not familiar with deadlifts, you're uncomfortable doing deadlifts, this is a great drill to start learning or getting more familiar with them because it's safe, it's going to allow you to go through good form, and it's going to allow you to practice good mechanics without a bunch of load. You don't have to worry about, oh man, I shouldn't pick up this weight because, you know, I'm not familiar with it or I don't really know what I'm doing. Well, this will make you a little bit more comfortable, and when the rest of us are doing deadlifts next, when we're loading it up, I want you to just practice more of these stick hinges. Or if you're like, you know what, I don't want to lift my weights, I did that earlier today, just stick with this stick hinges. We're going to have our feet shoulder width apart. We're going to put the stick with 3 points of contact, kind of like right on your tailbone between your butt cheeks. I'm going to flip my head around here. So between my butt cheeks, between my shoulder blades, and on the back of my head. So if I don't have the back of my head on the stick, it means I'm a little bit rounded in the thoracic spine. If I don't have my tailbone on the stick, it means I'm a little rounded in my low back. 2 things that we don't really want during this. So I want to be able to stick one hand in my low back, keep that stick between my butt cheeks, right on the thoracic spine and right on the back of the head. And that's going to keep you in a pretty normal neutral position. You know, if you need to extend the spine a little bit, more room for your hand, be my guest with this right now. But it's not necessarily something you're going to want to do when you have 400 pounds on a bar, body weight on the bar, something like that, because you are going to be putting a lot of compressive force through your spine. So if you just have enough room for your hand behind your neck and behind your low back, you'll be good. So what we're going to do is you're going to push your hips back behind you while maintaining those 3 points of contact, and then you're coming up. And you should feel a little stretch in your hamstrings as you do this. This is kind of part of what we were working on in the beginning with that half kneeling hamstring stretch and with the modified quadruped to half kneel. We're doing 8 of these. It's not a race, so just always show control. And if you see that, you know, as you're going down, that stick is coming off between your butt cheeks, extend your back a little bit more and bring the stick between your butt cheeks more. Just maintain those 3 points of contact. If you notice, once again, you go down, your head comes off, bring it back. Get familiar with the right position, or a safe position. everybody's built a little bit differently, so there is some variability in what you can do. And maybe if you're working with some limitations, just do the best you can. Maybe your head doesn't touch because you do have a slightly rounded posture. Work on your thoracic mobility. Work on opening up your chest, and gradually over time, you'll see how you've been able to change and improve your positioning. And then as long as you continue to do things that are beneficial for your posture and for your movement, you're going to get better. You're going to reduce your risk of feeling some discomfort or some pain in the long run with these exercises. And you'll feel more comfortable and more safe doing these things, and then you'll move more, and then you'll be healthier, and it's like this big cascading effect, all because you did some stick hinges. Or I'd like to think that way. All right, we're going to build upon this. Now, we talked about a lot of stuff with the deadlift last week. It's top of mind lately. I'm able to get back into my gym, into my clinic a little bit. I've got some barbells there. I'm going to start deadlifting again soon. I want to make sure my form is good. I want to make sure your form is good. Because I know that some people are getting back to the gym. I know things are kind of going nuts with the virus again, but some people are still going back. They're venturing out. So I want you to be safe with that, but I also want you to be safe if you are doing that and you decide to deadlift, or maybe you're staying at home doing all these HIIT workouts or workouts with your trainers over the internet. I want to make sure that you have a great understanding of your own form while you do this. So I have a particularly light kettlebell for me. It's one of the only ones I got at my house, the only ones I wanted to bring back here from my garage. And I'm going to stand directly over the top of it. And now, once again, if you have your stick and you just want to do your stick hinges, be my guest. But everyone else, we're going to be deadlifting, but I just want to show you something. So I'm standing over the top of my kettlebell. I'm going to get into that bottom position. I'm going to get rid of my stick. I'm still not quite there, okay? If I had a barbell, I'd be close. But what it means is I probably need to bend my knees a little bit more, and that's okay. There's this thing, people are scared to bend their knees. They say, oh my God, I need to do a stiff leg deadlift. That's not what we're doing. I want you to be able to get down there. You just have to maintain that spine position. So I get down, and you'll see all of a sudden my knees have to bend a little bit more, but I'm maintaining that spine position. Got my belt. I'm up. I'm back. And I'm maintaining good posture through my spine. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I can't reach down to the floor, so I need to get, maybe an aerobic block or some weights, some plates, and stack them up. So I'm maybe starting from 6 inches off the ground and going through a good safe range of motion. There's nothing that says your deadlift has to happen from the ground. People are built so differently. All we're trying to do is strengthen your glutes, strengthen your back in an isometric way, maybe strengthen your hamstrings a little bit. Now, when we're doing that, it's important that we do it safely. And so if lifting from the ground makes you round your spine and rounding your spine hurts, then don't do it, right? So just elevate it off the ground. If anybody says, hey, why are you doing that? You say, hey, because I'm just deadlifting, and it feels better for my back, and I'm going to be able to continue to deadlift as long as I do it safely. If you can get down to the ground, keep your shoulders back, you're standing up nice and tall, squeezing your butt cheeks at the top, braced in your trunk as well, pushing my hips back, bending my knees when I need to, and then I'm up. And we're going to go for 8. My neck, if you look, is just an extension of the rest of the spine. It's staying straight and in line. I'm not craning my neck to see the wall in front of me. 6, 7, and that goes for if there's 44 pounds in my hand, or a couple hundred. Your spine is going to be a lot stronger if you keep that neck in a neutral, safe position. Okay, we're going to be done with the weights for today, but we are going to use our stick again. And if you want, pull up a chair, an ottoman, a table, I don't know, something to touch your butt down to. We're going to be doing some box squats with our sticks. So I love box squats to load up the spine when somebody is having some pain with flexion, because putting a bar on someone's back automatically gets them into a more extended position. And pushing the butt back towards a target is going to actually cause somebody to extend their spine. If I just gave them a bar and said, go ahead and squat, chances are they're going to get here. Back is in a great position, but then as they go down, but But if I could say, okay, stand in front of this chair or box or block or whatever I've got, I say touch your butt back to it, okay? With my butt, and that's going to help me maintain or reduce the amount of flexion my lumbar spine goes through in a squat. Because as I said at the beginning, even with the best of intentions, we're still flexing our spine somewhere between 20 and 40 degrees as we squat down. You could try, you could look as good, you could say, you know, that spine looks straight with that squat, chances are it's still flexing, okay? There's very, 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 very few people who can actually squat with a straight spine, okay? And that's fine, as long as you feel good doing that. Now, if you don't feel good with a normal squat and you need to do some box squats, stick, whatever it is, right at the top, and I want you to reach back and try to touch your butt down to about knee level, okay? So my chair is roughly, 18 inches. That's a normal bench at a gym. And so from here, I'm just standing up, squeezing my butt, using my quads. I'm reaching back, maintaining extension in my spine. As soon as I feel the chair on the back of my legs, I stand. And I have 6 more to go. And you'll see I'm bending over a lot in my upper body, and that's okay as long as I'm trying to reduce the amount of flexion in my low back. I'm not here. I'm not sacrificing my spinal integrity. I still have my chest proud. 6, 7. Once again, my neck is an extension of my spine. Awesome. So that could be a barbell, that could be loaded up, that could be, one of those preset weight barbells at the gym. Could be a stick, could be a rubber band, could be nothing. You could also put your hands behind your head and pull your elbows back. That's going to allow you to get in that same shoulder position. That's going to feed some extension into your spine if you are experiencing some low back pain with your typical squats at the gym or at home, whatever it might be. So that's one modification, so you can continue to train your legs if your back is bothering you. I've got 2 more modifications really quick to show you. The first is just going to be a step back lunge. So whether you're with the stick behind your back, or it's barbell, whatever it is, the weights that we just talked about, whether it's no weight, maybe it's a kettlebell and you're holding it at your chest, a step back lunge is going to allow you to maintain a more upright position in your spine, and it's going to reduce your tendencies to flex. And so if I have a weight, let's say I'm going to keep it down here because it's going to allow me to maintain a more upright position than up at my chest. We're going to step back, and you'll see I'm able to maintain an upright position even when I'm pushing up, okay? If I do a forward lunge, there's going to be a tendency to pitch forward here and round my back. It's going to be harder to fight that. We're going to be putting more strain on our spine that's already a little bit sensitive. And so if you need to or want to continue to train your legs during this time that you're experiencing some pain, you step back, keep your chest up, and then you're pushing. We're going to go for 5 on each side. 2, 3. This is also a way to train around knee pain. This allows you to put a little less strain through your patellar tendon as you do them. Switch. Upright through the chest. I'm going to lose the weight for the next and last set. 4. All right. And 5. Okay, so there's one, let's see, second variation of a squat pattern or stepping pattern. While your back is hurting, maybe it's sensitive to flexion. Like I said, maybe it's your sciatic nerve, maybe it's disc herniations, which, by the way, let's talk about disc herniations for a second. Disc herniations heal, okay? Just because you have a herniated disc, it's not a death sentence to your movement career. There's tons of research that supports this. And in fact, the worse the herniation, the more likely and quicker it will heal. I can't make this stuff up. There's tons of research on this. It should empower you to say, okay, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to heal. It will take time. I need to manage things correctly. But if I do that, I will feel better, okay? They do heal, and you will feel better, okay? So just because your back is hurting at the moment doesn't mean that's how it's going to be for the rest of your life, okay? I don't want anybody to scare you into thinking that that's the case. I want you to feel empowered that you're gonna recover and feel good. And movement is a huge part of that recovery, okay? Bed rest is the enemy. Moving as much as you can, walking as fast as you can. These things are great for you. They're great exercises. This stuff, maybe you pick and choose what you can. It's all good. Let's see here. Oh, last variation of a squatting pattern is a rear foot elevated split squat. So we did step back lunges. Split squats are another thing that can be really helpful, but this is just a little bit more challenging for your balance. Maybe you don't have the equipment you need. There we go. Okay, so I have my one leg back. I'm going to basically just drop my knee down towards the ground and then coming back up. You might have to play around with how far away you are from your bench or your chair, but I don't have my ankle over the edge of the bench. It's basically just going to grind down the front of my foot. I'm just going down and up. You don't have to touch your knee down to the ground. Just go in that direction. Keep your chest up. And you can have a weight in your hand if you want. You can hold on to something for balance if you need to. 4, and I got one more. But you'll see I'm putting some extension into my lumbar spine. 5. There's actually a lot of research that shows, like, if you're doing rear foot elevated split squats, and you can hold 100 pounds, say. You can do a total of 100 pounds. And then I go to load up a barbell and say, okay, go ahead and back squat 200 pounds. Well, you say, well, you could do 100 pounds on each leg with a rear foot elevated split squat. That person's not going to come close to being able to actually squat the 200 pounds. And what it has shown is that the restriction with people's back squats is usually their trunk and their endurance and their strength in their trunk, because the legs can clearly tolerate more weight. But why can't they just do the grand total of each side? Well, there's a lot more going on with the mechanics and the stabilization that's required of the spine with 2 legs, actually. And so if you are trying to actually build stronger legs, single leg work like the rear foot elevated split squat is a great way at doing that, because you're going to get a lot more carryover to athletics, because a lot of the stuff we do with throwing is producing power off one leg, not from 2, although we do cut and change directions off 2 legs. All right, where was I? All right, last side, last exercise. Here we go. I'm tall through my chest. Knee goes down almost all the way. 2, keeping that extension in my spine. 3, if I had a really tight back of my butt, I would start flexing my spine, because my glute's going to want to pull my hips underneath me and round my spine. So we stretched them out. We've mobilized. 4. And we got one more. 5. I have no idea what time it is. Oh my God. And that was 5. Okay, so we did 5. And I'm sweating my butt off. Glad I didn't shower after my run. So I'm going to need one right now. All right, so I'm going to scroll through here, see if anybody had any questions. Thanks to all y'all who stuck with me. All right, let's see. Any questions? All right, a bunch of people scroll through. Awesome. Well, you know what? As always, I'm here. You know where to find me in my direct messages. You can find me at kineticpotentialpt@gmail.com as well. I have been toying with the idea of moving a little bit of my content over to Patreon, which is a membership platform, but I will still be having lives on Instagram. Fatty, you're welcome. I will still be providing content here, but I think that I can reach people a little bit more directly and give them what they want on a platform like that, where it is not limited by the algorithm, we'll say. So just keep your eyes out. I'm going to be posting some stuff about that. I also have a book that is being released later on this week. It's all about low back pain. It's why we hurt, what we can do about it, maybe some things that might be affecting your low back pain that you haven't even thought about within the biopsychosocial model of pain that is hopefully people are becoming more aware of. And then in there's also an 8-week-long program for people with non-specific low back pain. So today's stuff doesn't necessarily apply, because that's pretty specific. Someone who has a flexion intolerant spine, we kind of know what's going on there. But that non-specific low back pain, I don't know why my back hurts. Well, we know what is good, and it's exercise, stretching, mobility, that kind of stuff. And I've put a pretty solid program together. It's 8 weeks long, has videos, descriptions, links, and a bunch of research to back it as well. This was probably more lengthy than anything I wrote in college, any senior papers, anything like that. This was probably a little bit more, we'll say, thoroughly done, because I do care a little bit more about this, I would say. And I think I can reach out and help a lot of people with this information. So keep your eyes peeled for that as well. It's 50 plus pages of information plus, like I said, an 8-week program. So I'm also going to be sending out links and discount codes in my newsletter a little bit later on this week. So as always, guys, thank you for spending your afternoon and evenings with me. This stuff I know can be really beneficial for you if you need it. If you know somebody who needs it, please send them my way. I love helping people, like I said. It's why I got into physical therapy in the first place. So yeah, I'm going to leave it here. I am going to be skipping Friday. It is my daughter's 4-week checkup at the doctor, so I'm going to be spending it with my family and making sure that she is okay. So I'm going to be taking off, and I will be back though next week. I'll pick another topic to discuss it. We'll do something with the lower body early in the week. We'll do something with the upper body in the later portion of the week. And yeah, so as always, right, drink your water, eat your vegetables, get your sleep, and make sure you move. And always reach out to me with your questions. You can direct message me. You can comment on anything I post. And you can reach me at my email, kineticpotentialpt@gmail.com. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and I will see you next week.